Hi friends, in this tutorial I'll be demonstrating how you can create a nautical layout in your scrapbook or an art journal, but keep it in a really warm tones instead of just using blues. When I'm finished with this page, I also have another bonus layout for you, so just keep watching this video. The journal I'm working on is not about me, it's actually a storybook that I'm writing for my children. I'm making pictures of their toys and use them as the illustrations for this book. Since the book is titled By the Sea, nearly all layouts are going to be nautical themed, but I still have to manage to keep them all different. To create the background for my page, I'm going to use the white washi tape. The one I'm using is by Altenew. It's called Peach Gold and it's 4.5 inches wide. Since the tape is low-tech, I'm also going to apply some liquid glue onto the page so that the tape is going to be stuck permanently. I'm centering the tape on my page and then I'm going to remove the excess tape from the spine area. Then I'm going to repeat this process on the right side of my spread. Washi tapes are great for using in notebooks like this one because they add almost no bulk at all. I'm also using the bone folder to press down the tape and get rid of all the air bubbles underneath. Then I'm going to trim off all the excess washi tape that hangs off the edges of my notebook. This pattern is basically just a watercolor wash, but I think it also looks a lot like sand and therefore it matches my theme. These are the two pictures that I made for this spread, and as you see they are also very warm colors, peaches, golds and oranges. I have also used this mini envelope die by Sizzix to die cut this envelope template shape out of the pattern paper. Now I'm going to put the envelope together, which is really easy to do. You just have to apply some glue onto the two tabs and stick them down. This envelope is meant to hold gift cards, but on my layout it's going to be a real one and I'm going to add an actual letter inside it. To make it look even more like a real one, I'm going to add a strip of postage-themed washi tape at the bottom of the envelope. As always, if you are interested in the tools and supplies that I'm using, I will have a list of them with links to online stores down below in the description box, as well as on my blog. Now I'm going to take a sponge dauber and some walnut stain distress ink and go all around the edges of the envelope. This way I'm going to define the envelope outlines a bit better and I'm going to help it to stand out against the background a bit more. Now I also need a stamp for my envelope and I managed to find some stamped images on a scrap piece of very old patterned paper. This one happened to be Christmas themed, but it's not a big deal. I'm going to cover up the image. I'm going to use one of the images from this leaflet, which is included in nearly all toy sets that I'm using. By the way, if you're interested, the toy brand is Sylvanian Families or Calico Critters in the USA. So I have chosen a lighthouse image that matches my story and I'm going to stick it down onto the stamp. Then I'm going to stick down the postage stamp onto my envelope. By the way, the cancellation stamp would be really nice to use here. Unfortunately, I don't have it in my stash, but as soon as I get one, I will simply add it to this page. I'm also going to back up my photos with some wood grain patterned paper, and that also is going to help them to stand out against the background. By the way, this story is about this cat girl receiving a letter from her old friend and writing a reply, so the layout is going to be full of letters. I'm also going to use this journaling tag from my stash. It's got some seashell patterns and it matches the colors of my spread. To keep the consistent look, I'm also coloring the edges with walnut stain distress ink. And to add even more fun textures, I'm going to set up an eyelet at the top of this tag. And since I'm planning to add some red accents all around the page, this eyelet is also going to be red. Now I am feeding a piece of jute twine through the hole and tying it up. It looks quite nautical to me as well. Now I am arranging all three large elements that I have prepared at the left side of my spread, and I'm sticking them down using some double-sided tape. I'm also trimming down the tails of the twine. I'm trying to make these elements look like a cluster, and therefore I'm avoiding any right angles, and I'm trying not to place anything parallel to the edges of the pages. Now I'm going to use the thin brown pen and add some text to the journaling tag. It is about the kitty receiving a letter. I have created one more tag out of patterned paper. I also attached a twine to it, and this one is going to be placed inside of the envelope. I also used the same brown pen to write this letter. Here I have some sticker paper. This one is craft colored and the grid is brown, so it matches my layout perfectly. I'm just tearing the edges and I'm sticking down this strip at the top of the right page to add even more text. I'm peeling off the liner and sticking down this piece of paper, but I will be adding a text after I have stuck down all the other elements, because I don't know how much it's going to be overlapped yet. I'm also sticking down the photo at the bottom of the page, and this one is showing the cat girl writing a reply to her friend. I have trimmed down a piece of parchment paper to fit my page, and now I'm going to add another red accent to it, which is going to be a wax seal. So I'm holding down a piece of twine, then I'm pouring some hot liquid sealing wax on top of it, and then I'm pressing it all down with the stamp. I left it to cool down for about a minute, then I'm removing the stamp and trimming down the twine. I love wax seals, they are the perfect texture and they are really vintage and nautical too. Then I'm going to add some grid lines to this piece of paper, so I have attached it to one of the pages of this very same notebook with the washi tape, and then I'm using the lines in the notebook as the guide. Once I'm finished, I'm going to remove this little letter from the page, and now I'm ready to add my text. This time I'm going to write a message in red to match the wax seal, and since I didn't have a red pen, I'm going to use a thin nib of a distress marker. It works fine. After I have added the text, I'm going to add even more texture to this little letter, so I'm going all around the edges with the distress tool. Then with the scissors I'm going to create some small cuts along the edges of the letter, and I'm going to curl them up, and this way I'm adding even more texture. I'm also going to ink up the edges of the letter, and I'm using the vintage photo distress ink. All these techniques are not new, but they just work every time. And now I'm applying some double-sided tape at the wrong side of this little letter, and I'm sticking it down onto the page at an angle. Now I'm also adding the text at the top of the page, and at this point I can say that all the main elements are now there, and it's time to add the accents and tie up all the elements together. I'm going to use the die cuts as the accent pieces. All of the die cuts I'm using are from the same die set. It is Beyond the Sea by Paper Discovery. I've die cut them out of red and sand color patterned paper, and I inked up the edges with the brown ink. Then I can just play around and position all the elements around this spread. Once I'm happy with their placement, I can stick down all the elements one by one, and I'm using my Ranger multi-medium liquid adhesive. And this is what the finished spread looks like. I tried to capture all the warm elements of the sea, like the sand, the sun, seashells, some sea creatures, and the old wood. And now, as promised, I'm also going to include another spread, which is the next page of my book. And this one is going to represent the inside of the house. I am going to start with creating the floor, so I'm attaching a strip of washi tape along the bottom edge of my pages. Washi tapes are always a great solution for notebooks and journals. You can add a quick texture without adding any bulk. Washi tapes are also very forgiving. For instance, in this case, I decided to make this floor line a bit narrower. So I'm using the craft knife and I'm cutting along the washi tape, and I'm being very light-handed and trying to cut through the tape only, but not through the paper underneath. Then I'm just removing the top layer, and I have the result that I wanted. To add the pattern to the walls, I'm going to use this diamond pattern stencil by Holtz. This one allows us to add two colors, and now I'm starting with the first one, which is the tumbled glass. This pattern is totally expandable, so I'm making sure I'm covering up both pages. Then I'm lining up the stencil with the pattern on the page, and I'm adding the next color, which is hickory smoke. I try to apply very little ink because I'm still going to add some text on top. Now when I have the floor and the walls, I can add more elements inside the room, and I'm going to start with the picture on the wall. I have used the Nested Squares die set to die cut a frame out of wood grain paper, and I have also created an underlay out of blue paper, and then I'm sticking down the wood grain piece on top of the blue background. I have used a craft knife to trim off the paper from the inside of the frame, and I only left a super thin blue outline on the inside. To fill in the frame, I'm going to cut out the picture from the little catalog, and this one is featuring 3 friends and it matches my story perfectly. So now I'm just applying some double-sided tape at the wrong side, and then I'm framing my picture. I have backed up my picture with a piece of cardstock just for more sturdiness, and then I'm also going to attach some twine to it. Also, to hang the picture, I'll need some sort of a nail or a screw, so I have this brad here that is shaped like a screw head, and I'm using the wire cutters to trim off the legs. Then with the hot glue, I'm attaching a piece of twine at the wrong side of the picture, and I'm using the bone folder to press it down. This one is the Teflon one and it's non-stick. Then I'm sticking down this picture right onto the wall. Then I'm attaching the screw head onto the twine, and again I'm using the hot glue gun. The next large element that is actually the focal image is going to be the large sofa, and I'm going to use the dies to create it. The dies I'm using are from Elegant Room die set by Paper Discovery. These dies are great for paper piecing, so I created the frame for the sofa out of wood grain patterned paper, and I used 2 matching patterned papers for upholstery. And then I'm just putting all the pieces together like a puzzle. Since this image is a bit too large for one page, I'm trimming off a piece of it, and then I'm going to stick them down onto the layout separately. So I'm sticking down both pieces on 2 different pages, and I'm leaving the spine area open, and this way I can open and close my notebook without any problems. Then I'm also adding the text to the left page. You can hardly see it on camera because the pen is metallic, but in real life it's quite fine to read. Now the room looks a bit empty without any critters, so I have decided to add 2 characters. So I printed out 2 pictures using my Sprocket Mini printer, and the reason I created 2 is that I want to make each image a bit larger. Then I'm going to use my scissors and cut them out. Since this photo paper is self-adhesive, I'm simply peeling off the backing from the pictures, and I'm sticking down the characters onto the sofa. The plot here is that the 2 old friends met and they are recollecting their school days. To create a little bit more interest on the background, I'm sticking down some strips of washi tape as well as the strips of printed vellum and some pieces of doilies as well. Then I'm just adding some boxes with the text, and this layout is finished. So this is what my little book looks like at the moment. I can't wait to finish it and read it to my children. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you found some of the ideas interesting. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful weekend. Bye bye!